It's our big 250. A look back and a look ahead. Ask me anything, Star Trek. Yes, yes. Today on Trekland Tuesdays live episode 250. Hey, everybody. Here we are. Whoosh. Well, this has been a week, hasn't it? For a lot of us and for a lot of you, it is so great to be here with my one and only live stream show now. If you want to see Dr. Trek and Trekland, this is the only place you can go. It's our 250th episode of Life Support Live. We're on all thrusters here. We're going to have an Ask Me Anything today. As I said, look back and look ahead, but I've got a couple of cool little surprises for you if you bear with me. If I want to say a couple of things about a couple of things. Number one, yes, what an awesome week this has been. I am very excited about the virtual TrekCon that happened over the weekend. What an amazing there, Ryan and Sirach and Dr. Anne Marie, Melissa and Mohammed and all of the gang over there. And what a thrill it was for them to unleash the LLAPy awards, the LLAPy awards, and especially what a fun thing it was to jump over and do an awards show after show, reaction show, which I think may have been a first in Trek fandom. We didn't exactly know what that would be like, but we all had a kick. John Champion and Charlene Schmidt and Brie Bulky. We all had a lot of fun. And if you didn't see the awards show, which had tons of surprises, lots of celebrity guest appearances, my hat is off to them for organizing all that. It's over at the Virtual TrekCon YouTube channel. And the after show is at least at the Roddenberry Entertainment channel. Probably at Virtual TrekCon too by the time it's all said and done. Had a lot of fun Sunday night. So yes, Picard keeps drawing an audience, still keeps feeling like in its skin. And part of that weekend at Virtual TrekCon was, I'm just going to say it, it was kind of a bittersweet moment. It was the finale, if you didn't catch it, the finale of, for right now, of our Life Support Live show. Number 88, the finale for now, because we'll be around at live cons, and we're going to do some special live streams every once in a while. Maybe even an old school, bring your own media watch along the way we used to do it. But it was also the week of the season 3 Discovery finale, which almost seems to have gotten lost in the shuffle with Picard building up. This overlapping of shows seems like I'm having flashbacks to the 90s here when DS9 and Voyager would drown each other out at times, or just split the audience. Or so I had thought until the last Discovery aired for the season. And lo and behold, there's Stacey Abrams playing the president of Earth. A little on the nose, but still that's awesome because she is a huge Star Trek fan. Everything good about Star Trek inspired her to do the political work that she does. She is a progressive icon, a progressive lion, and has done a lot about registering people to vote, which is all part of what the law should be and what democracy should be. And of course, it's political. She has opponents. And apparently some folks, as could have been predicted, her Star Trek cred, though, cannot be challenged. She was involved in election year bits. They involved Star Trek in helping get out the vote, helping raise money. And it goes beyond politics. She's just a good old thing. She was a big fan of Kate Mulgrew and Captain Janeway as a young girl growing up, of course. So that's all been in the zeitgeist, and then was part of the political establishment that reached out to Star Trek, where most of the Star Trek folks lean that way politically. And power to them. It's been that way on all sides with celebrities forever. What's been fun, though, has been almost the predictable. And I would expect it. The predictable pushback about that. How dare you have cameos are one thing and celebrities are one thing, but how dare you have a political animal like that? And so on the nose, as if portraying that the progressive ideas are what dominate. Well, I'm not going to make this into a political platform, but look at the words progressive. What's the opposite of progressive? Regressive. If you regress, then you go back to the Middle Ages, you go back to the Stone Ages, you club each other, and it's a dog-eat-dog world, and that's supposedly not what civilization is all about. It's finding a way to keep the best of us and provide for more and more of that. So I don't want to get into it too deep. What's been interesting is a couple of the other pushbacks that are a little more nuanced than that. One is from a lot of you all, from a lot of folks who are fans around the world, who I think it's almost a testament to how well Star Trek is doing now. Because look, the original series in the 60s, no one had a thought that there would be reruns for 50 years, much less that other people around the world would be enjoying it and watching it and caring, much less anybody beyond the English-speaking world. And, to be fair, nobody in America knew about Doctor Who, unless you were just a really the top 1% of sci-fi media people, which was a rare breed to begin with anyway. So it's been kind of interesting to watch, to be reminded of how universal Star Trek has become. And some of that's been the Kelvin movies really went global for the first time. Everything else has been for the American and Canadian market. And then everything else is just fodder. It's just gravy. It's just icing on the cake, yay, until the last 10, 15 years. And now casting is done with an eye in mind, especially to global reach. That's really more true of movies than it is of series. Although with streaming, especially now, we're really seeing a globalization of streaming. But it still is not driving casting decisions, and it's much less writing decisions. So it was interesting and fun. And maybe some of you in the chat today, and by the way, I'm going to do this. This is a very short platform today before we hit this. It was interesting to see so many people be a little indignant. Lost would be too wimpy a word, but I think, yeah, frustrated and indignant that how dare Star Trek spring a cameo on you that the whole world didn't know. So I just want to step back and say, well, it is still as much of a universal following as Star Trek has, and as much as we try to be global at times, I say we, especially the series, are still pretty much made for an American audience, even though I'm going to say the global audience is a fourth or a third of all the eyeballs they're going to see current Star Trek. Of course, it helps if you have stable platforms to get it out to you on. I totally understand that. And if the mouse ever roared out of its mousehood, it was, of course, after the big debacle over Paramount Plus with Netflix that we just had a few months back. So if anything, that shows what the passion is and what the voice will stand up and demand. But I just thought that was kind of interesting. I hate to say it's still an American show, but it's still an American show, and that's not to be culturist. It's just kind of the money facts. But having said that, nobody is like Star Trek when it comes to trying to think globally. So if there'd been, a German politician or a British politician or something, we had the Jordanian king, and nobody in America knew who that was until the trivia bots 3 months later came out and got it to you in your every 2 months communicator magazine. No one knew that was Crown Prince, of Jordan, much less now King Jordan. Yes, that kind of thing has happened. Maybe not so overtly. What's more predictable, though, is the outrage from people who are saying, we got back into the old Star Trek was never meant to be political. Why is Star Trek being political? Yada, yada. And then we get the pushback, well, Star Trek has always been political. And then we get into the bit about, yeah, but that was always metaphors and allegory, and it wasn't so on the nose. You were just supposed to reason it out when they were making a themed parable that they want to apply it to in our own time, whether that was the 60s or the 80s or whatever. And I that's pretty much true, but can I just remind everyone there are a couple of moments, and I know there are more. I mentioned this on our finale for Life Support Live. There are a couple of moments that spring to mind, immediately from the original series. That metaphor, allegory-laden little series that had so much censorship in the 60s, no one could get anything on the nose past the censors, right? Standards and practices. There was a little episode called, I don't know, it's one of my favorites, The Doomsday Machine. As Kirk and McCoy are interviewing the distraught Decker here when he's still in shock, and Kirk is putting it together and says they're talking about what the Doomsday Machine must be, the parallel. And Kirk says, Bones, did you ever hear of a Doomsday Machine? And of course, McCoy says, no, I'm a doctor, not a mechanic. And Kirk says, it's a weapon built primarily as a bluff. It's never meant to be used. So strong it could destroy both sides in a war. Something like the old H-bomb was supposed to be. Something like the old H-bomb was supposed to be. That's what I think this is, a doomsday machine that somebody used in a war uncounted years ago. They don't exist anymore, but the machine is still destroying. Okay, now we're tied back into the story, but he's right there. It's a 20th century thing. The doomsday clock, the doomsday machine, built, never meant to be used until somebody used it, and that could be cataclysm. That could be doomsday. But even better, a little show called Private Little War. When Kirk and McCoy find themselves in that history lesson once again, and McCoy gets to play every man of the 23rd century. Kirk says, Bones, do you remember the 20th century brush wars on the Asian continent? Asia's a big continent. This fits for many wars. Two giant powers involved, much like the Klingons and ourselves. Neither side felt they could pull out. So in case by now you hadn't got it that the Klingons were cardboard fill-in villains for the Russians, there's your proof. A Gene Kuhn era episode, by the way. And McCoy says, yes, I remember it went on bloody year after bloody year. Kirk says, what would you have suggested? That one side arm its friends with overpowering weapons? Mankind would never have lived to travel space if they had. No, the only solution is what happened back then. Balance of power. And they're reflecting on the 20th century. And apparently by the 23rd century, by Kirk's time, there was no better solution invented than what happened. So not to get into the mechanics of the moment and what they're debating, but there's two examples right there where Star Trek was not all about allegory. Sometimes they gave you the allegory, the metaphor, and then they told you what the allegory was about. So that happens more or less, in the 80s. For the other side, if you want to say that, although at the time it seemed to be unanimous, now since we've had lots of regrets about it. Don't forget about Nancy Reagan's Just Say No and the little scene specifically written in where Tasha gives Wesley a Just Say No lecture. It's very 1988 sounding for 2364, but there you go. Today we would wince at that it was so simplistic and by the box, but there you go. Nancy Reagan, I mean, come on, not Stacey Abrams. So I'm just going to answer that once and for all. The old motif here, however it rears its head, about Star Trek being not it's set 400 years in the future. People 400 years in the future don't sit around and debate Congress and Parliament and Bundestag and Duma decisions. They pop up as historical spikes and throwbacks and lookbacks. Yeah. Caesar, Hitler, Lee Kuan. They are us, and they do remember the highlights of history. So yeah, that was this week's kerfluffle, like we haven't seen. It's almost like Michelle Paradis and everybody on Discovery wanted to make sure that Discovery didn't go quietly out the door, even as Picard was building and building. So just in case. And they certainly didn't want the finale for Life Sport Live to steal all the media thunder spotlight. No, we're not going to do that. So that's just a thought. As I say that, let's see what's going on. Let's see what everybody says. This is truly going to be a celebration of 250. Yay! Celebration of 250. Ask me anything. So maybe I stirred something up there. We will see. So if any of you saw Virtual TrekCon, any of the aspects, whether something I was involved with or not, they had a lot of good programming. We're about to hit a stretch run of a lot of interesting news coming, a lot of events coming up. So I'm going to do that. And by the way, as we hit this, I want to remind and tell everybody about two things I will throw in the pot. Speaking of it, coming up, we're doing it warily. I think it's a trust but verify. And the week I was away, we went to see a musical, fully masked, with having to show not only a Vax record, but your booster shot included, at a small community theater up Northern California. But then also 3 days later, back at a resort, big restaurant where no masking was suggested, where most of the staff was masking. Some of them weren't. And almost nobody pulling through except people of Asian heritage, and mothers with kids seemed to be wearing masks. Everybody else was pretty much mask free. So I hope we don't pay for that. I know we're watching that around the world right now in several places, Europe, China, watching what happens with the future pandemic. But I would like to think that we're on a slow, bumpy ride back to normal. And that's why I have been making noises about reopening some very special Star Trek film tours, and even our own homegrown day tours that I call Trekland Treks. So we've got a couple, I think, on the board coming. But even more than that, if you're going to Trek Vegas this year in August, remember the later date, just a reminder that if you are headed your way to Vegas, come a day early and take a day trek out with Geek Nation Tours and I, Terrace and I, out to the Valley of Fire. It will be, since Trek Vegas is 1 day shorter, they've gone back to 4 days. So this day, pre-con, the con eve day, is Wednesday, August 24th. So if you can stretch your schedule, check it out, geeknationtours.com. It's just a 1 day, but it'll be about 6 to 7 hours. The Valley of Fire, the Kirk Memorial Tour, as I call it, where we'll go to the film site of Kirk's death in Generations and some other surprise moments, and a lot of cool natural history and wildlife and rock formations along the way, as well as your dose of Star Trek. We've done that 4 or 5 times. It's always a lot of fun. I think we need 6 people to make that work. So think about that if you're headed out that way. Also, from the house of Trekland Treks, I announced this Saturday. Right now, we're still putting it together, but I want everyone to know that the tour that we announced last year and held back for COVID is back. And I mean, it's the Great Birds Origins Tour, the Gene Roddenberry Centennial, tail end of the Centennial Tour. It's going to be 2 days adjoining his birthday in August 20th, 21st. And yes, this is the weekend before Trek Vegas and the weekend before that 1 day Valley of Fire tour, before all that. So if you can get yourself to LA, we have a deal at the Hollywood Roosevelt for a cut rate hotel rate. I will tell you all about that, what's involved, but we are really what it says. It's 2 full days in Los Angeles on the vehicle appropriately sized, retracing the life that led to Star Trek. Gene's early boyhood homes, his family, his career with LAPD, where he was married with both families, where he worked, LAPD, and some of the studios where he worked, just things that tie into Gene's life. And of course, that will include a Paramount walk around too. So if you're excited about that, let me know. I had it all priced last year. I'm having to rejigger things right now, but we can now this year have it on his anniversary weekend. And maybe it's a lead in to you who are traveling to Vegas, or not, if you're just coming to LA, or of course, if you're here. The hotel is an option if you want that, if you have your own place. But we do have a really good deal with the Hollywood Roosevelt. I just got in place last week. So that's what's happening as 2022 bears down. Thank you all for showing up for our 250th. Just a little surprise here for those of you. Here's what the first week of what became Trekland Tuesdays Live look like. You ready?
Hey everybody, welcome Mother and Father Federation and all the ships at space. Welcome from deep inside Portal 47 here at Trekland HQ. No, it's just Larry. Sorry I was a little late there, fumbling around with Facebook Live, all this pioneering stuff, although I know there's plenty of pros out there. I just wanted to jump on today, get some things off my desk. There's a lot going on. I know I've been a little out of it, working on Con of Wrath, finally editing, and my documentary, conofwrath.com, and working on Portal 47. But there's some things that have been going on, as usual, online. I talk about them a lot when I get interviewed or on podcasts, like with Chris at the Ready Room on Trek FM. Some of the links are in this post that I made today. But at the same time, it's getting exciting that we've been talking about upfronts lately, and then it took Trek Movie to remind me the other day that that's this week, and everybody should be watching for that. At the same time, a lot of the excitement around it is tempered by this good old tendency and good old fandom to the 10% that's just freaking out. Now, I know a lot of this is about people are frustrated and people are passionate. That's what you always say, right? You're passionate. But, I mean, we have history. It's like with everything else. It's like with our current events. We have a history. We can look back at other times. And you know, with Star Trek, it's like, I mean, my God, the worst of all was the 10 years we didn't have anything but 3 flimsy little seasons of reruns trying to get a movie back the first time. Just establish the fact that Star Trek deserved to be back and could actually make some money for the people that need that to happen. But then, yeah, then the time before Next Generation, when it was really a naysayer, the time before the Wrath of Khan, when people actually leaked, it was leaked that Spock was going to be killed off, and did a huge marketing campaign in the era of, oh, look at us, where we are empowered consumers, and did marketing studies to show Paramount how much they would lose in box office revenue and videotape rentals and licensing sales if they killed Spock off. I mean, it's all part of our history now. Same thing happened with Next Generation.
Okay, get the idea. That was handheld wobbly. I was hand-holding my wobbly iPhone there, and eventually would look at some issues and things, but hand scroll through. So that's a blast from the past. But let me see. I want to show you just a little bit. By the time I decide to make this a thing, here's what it looked like just a short time later. Hey everybody. I know, it's impossible. Welcome to the debut of Trekland Tuesdays with Dr. Trek. Can you see it through the light? There it is. I know, seriously. The door is open.
Flipping. We will work on all that. But, hey, this is going to be, believe it or not, the beginning of what I hope will be just a few minutes to jump in on Tuesdays and talk about what's been going on, because it seems like we're living in a faster and faster moving world. I know, shock. But even in Star Trek, I mean, we've had 12 years of being in the desert, not used to this pace.
It's so 2017.
Like and sometimes I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Case in point, the last week, hard on the heels of the trailer coming out from CBS at the upfronts a couple of weeks ago, you know, within the fandom realm, people debate about All Access, people debate the good, the bad, the canon, the whatever. But I don't know if we were quite ready for this this sidebar coming in that's now been picked up by the mainstream media. Now, you know, we're used to our little Trek world of media and blogs and everybody following along Star Trek. Discovery upping the game here has brought in all the sci-fi and geek blogs and media and websites. But, you know, we've got the mainstream taking attention here because of this latest news story. And it's all about call them what you will. I mean, look, here's my friend Manu, writing on the New Yorker, which of course is not.
Yes, it's the hold up the tablet.
The NewYorker.com
era
for alt-right trolls. Start.
Okay, enough of that. Anyway, I just thought you guys would like a throwback to number 1. Technically, it was retconned as number 1, and then number 2, was labeled as that, and yeah, the first stab at a logo and all of that. Anyway, just throwing that out there to show you how baby steps everything in just the enormous amount of 5 years ago was. Yeah. So all the conventions and all the memes and everything of what I do here now has all evolved since then. Someday somebody will do the Wikipedia for Tuesdays Live, and this marks the first time that this was said and that was said, and all the little tripey taglines and everything. So blow anybody's minds? That was back when we were all totally on handheld wobbly. I was totally holding my camera up by hand before I had a little Gobi stand for the second one. Before I learned how to shut the door. Before I learned how to flip the camera. I think number 3, we have the camera flipped normally. Of course, I could fix that now, but why take away the charm? Happy 250. Things have changed a lot since that first one. We even got a little soapbox in about what's going on. Kind of looking at maybe taking a wider stance on a controversy from the moment. But Discovery's done. We've got Picard to look forward to. People seem to be excited. And yes, it's a great time in Trek world. And it's a great time in Trekland too. So everybody, till next Tuesday, or for your Portales tomorrow night, right? Tomorrow day and night. Stay healthy. Please do all the things. Stay woke. Check your sources. And do your investigation on when you hear new information. Because overall, I just want you to trek well, everybody. Thanks so much.